So what's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Rudy Munroe and you're watching The Munroe Show. So today's video is going to be a little bit different to all of the other videos that you might have seen or watched. If you're a new subscriber, hi, how you doing? And if you are a loyal subscriber, meaning you've been with me for a little while, how you doing, darling? How you doing? Anyway, moving on, this video is a little bit more serious than some of my other videos. If you had watched Let's Talk, Mind, Body and Soul, where I just kind of sat down in front of the camera and I just talked, well, this video is going to be like that. Today I'm going to be fact checking some of you people out there. I'm kind of, I'm perplexed, for a better lack of words. I'm perplexed about a few things, and I think collectively as a people we should come to some mutual understanding, and not everybody might not like it and everybody might not agree, but the facts are the facts, and some of the facts you cannot dispute. You're just really disputing someone else's a point of opinion or perspective on how they see something. But anyway, I'm going to get into the segment of this video. If I'm looking down, I'm looking at my notes. I have my notes here. I have all my notes, like a couple pages of notes that I've written down. Sorry, I'm gonna read off some of my notes because then for me, this is how I stay on topic, on task. Why am I doing this video? I have seen a number of videos about brands or products not being inclusive or just showing their hand in terms of how they depict melanated people. I don't just want to talk about one specific thing, but a multitude of things. I have seen some double standards or oxymorons, so to put it, but within all the complaining, I'm yet to hear one thing: create your own. To give you an understanding of what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going back into history, as people believe we have moved so far forward from the past. However, brands, companies and organizations, when in reality have always been like this, and they were never inclusive to begin with, leading to people calling for boycotts and strikes and various other means of allowing their voice to be heard. 1. Dorothy Dankbridge was the first melanated person to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role, titled Carmen Jones, in 1954. Now, although this was the bestseller in the box office, earning over, I believe it was 6.5 million. Compared to their budget, it was nothing to compare. It was triple, quadruple that of what the film had brought in. Not forgetting it was an all melanated cast. And it was a musical as well. Now, although she was, it was the best-selling film, she did not win the award. Now, some might say, well, that comes down to voting. However, during that time, segregation and racism, I wouldn't say was at its peak, but it was still very high. I don't think personally there was a peak in racism or segregation. It was just segregation and that was it. I'm not going to be getting into the Jim Crow laws or anything like that, but that was roughly around that time. Just to give you a little backstory, Marilyn Monroe was around that time as well, and she passed away before Dorothy Dankbridge passed away as well. 2. Alabama interracial marriage. Now, this amendment was amended November 7th, 2000. Alabama is notorious for being defiant when it comes to the law in a more layman's terms, and although people vote for it or they have a ballot, it still takes a long time for them to change the law and fall into line of desegregation when it happened way back in the 1960s, I believe it was. So the law was passed and it was approved that interracial marriage in Alabama was allowed. And that is a constitution, that is an amendment of their constitution in Alabama. And that took place, as I said before, on the 7th of November 2000. Number 3, Harvard University. Now, personally speaking, I don't see what the problem with this one is. But then again, it speaks to the reason why I'm doing this video. It's about segregation and not being inclusive or exclusive to a certain type of people, and people are in uproar and upset to the fact that Harvard University is having a black only ceremony. Now, this took place on the 23rd of May 2007. I did a bit of research and come to find out that Stanford and Columbia University also have their black owned ceremonies. Harvard is saying that this is not excluding melanated people to join in the normal ceremony, which they will still be a part of the normal ceremony, but they will have a separate ceremony for them. Now, it was stated that the class of 2007 wanted or came up or created this ceremony. Now, it was stated also that it was to celebrate black excellence and, anything to do with the growth of melanated people, basically. The point is that there wants to be segregation, and people are in uproars about it, and they don't see why there should be a black only ceremony. 4, segregation within the educational system. Now, I talk about Alabama and I talk about the UK. For some reason, Alabama just kept coming up. I just don't know what it was. It was like, it just kept coming up. Its head kept surfacing, and I'm not a type of person that if I see something, I'm not going to take some notes. I've got side notes to it. So if you want to watch a documentary or a talk with Nicole Hannon-Jones on the modern day segregation, she is stated in America, and she done some research, and I think she's a journalist as well, about segregation within the public and private schools. My own interjection on what she was saying is that basically we should have, or public schools should have, more access to staff, and we should be integrated with the public schools. Now, there's a reason why public schools and private schools stay separate. Personally speaking, I believe that private schools stay separate because, number one, they don't have to be governed, they don't have to follow certain rules and regulations, and they can accept who they want with no explanation. I can simply turn you away just because I don't want you in my school. Now, there are some private schools where there are all Paleolithic or Caucasian people just in that private school. That is completely down to them. And I think her point of is that, we need to come together and let some of the private pupils go to the public school, therefore we can have a better public school education. There's certain things that will be done in the public schools that are not being done now. But my thing is that you're forcing something upon people that do not want to be inclusive. They want to be exclusive. They want to be independent. They don't want to be included in your public schools where the majority might be blacks, Latinos, and Asian people. They might not want to be in that school. And then on the flip side is that when she mentioned about some of the private pupils coming over to her school because the educational board forced their hand, they then wanted to change the rules and regulations of the public schools. So, moving forward, my disclaimer. Alabama did go through a desegregation during the civil rights movement in the 1950s and the 1960s. In 1962, George Wallace, elected governor, was adamant that there would be segregation forever. In June 1963, when 7 Moorish students tried to enter the school, George Wallace called state troops to block the doors of the school. Basically, not to protect the new pupils that were coming in, the new melanated students that were coming in, but to block them out, to also not have them in the school. Now, by this time, desegregation was already in full effect. Now, even though it was in full effect in terms of law and amendment, there was still, heavily people not wanting to be integrated, especially in the school education, in terms of, allowing melanated students or anybody to come into the same premises where they are. He wanted to still have an all-white school. Fast forward to April 2017, a judge ruled that a mostly white Alabama city could secede from a more racial diverse school district if they met certain conditions. Basically, meaning all-white schools or an all-white school. It's not, Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that speaks volumes. The fact that it's a subject, it's a topic of discussion. The fact that it's a topic of discussion, it just says a lot, I'm thinking to myself, have we not moved on from the early 50s right through until the 60s? Like, what happened when all of these things were, passed in terms of desegregation and stuff like that? Although I'm yet to find any laws that have been passed as of yet to proceed with having an all-white school. And as we are currently in 2008, and this discussion took place just last year, 2017, I'm guessing it's still in the process. Now, moving on to the UK side, because what's the point if I don't cover at least the UK, you know what I mean? So, although there isn't, or I couldn't find any laws directly stating segregation, and when I did look up some laws, I found just in terms of segregation, the United Kingdom didn't actually pass any laws in terms of segregation. But however, what they did do is, in ways to segregate people, they did that by money, by status, by political, things and stuff of that nature. But in terms of the schools, there was still no laws passed. But there is segregation within the UK schools everywhere you turn. And it might not be recognised as segregation because it's looked at as something being normal, but it really isn't. People are segregated by colour, they are segregated by sex, and they are segregated by religion or faith. And also this includes zones. So if you know anything about schooling, or from the research that I've done, zones mean this school is in a certain bracket of area code A and area code B, meaning from area code A to code B, is maybe looked at as a higher zone, giving the school a much higher grade than a school that is in zone G to H. And that's how they kind of operate in terms of the UK. You know, we have an all boys and all girls school. You can say that's for teaching purposes, that, you know, mixing girls and boys together might not be, you know, formally correct, but in the schools that are mixed with male and female, there is definitely segregation in terms of colour, sex, religion, faith, and zoning. So where you come from, you know, in terms of your stature, what is your income in your household, that also plays into measure. You might not think it does, but it really does play a key factor when it comes to dealing with people that are in the public sector or go to the public schools in the public sector. 5, makeup brands. So I'm kind of just over this section. I'm just going to be completely honest. I did no research whatsoever. I did none. I did very little, but for the most part I did none. The only reason why I did none is because for the most part, when watching videos and when watching, you know, or reading, people's articles about brands not being exclusive, and there needs to be plenty more shades for the darker skinned or melanated person. You know, we don't all just come in 4 shades. My thing is, I'm yet to hear you say, create your own. Now, I was going to put some names out there, which I'm not sure if I'm going to do, because I think you guys kind of know already who the brands are, but maybe I should, because I'm being very transparent in this video, so there is no reason for me not to put the names out there. So, for example, Maybelline, L'Oreal and Tarte. Now, there's plenty more makeup brands out there that people say are not inclusive. And my thing is, when they started, were they inclusive in the first place? That is the real question. The second question is, why are you complaining? Their market is not you. Their market has become you, because they know that melanated people buy into a lot of stuff. There's plenty of brands, this is like a side note, clothing brands out there that do not support outwardly, verbally spoken, melanated people buying their product. They've said it out of their own mouths, and yet still people go and spend their money and pay and buy into their product, knowing that they don't like you, knowing that they look down on you, knowing they think of you less than or as an animal. You know, so you know, I didn't do any research on this thing. I think it's very self-explanatory. You know, it might seem like, well, okay, well, why didn't you do any much research on it? Because, to be honest, I didn't want to. I'm kind of over the whole things like that. I think that if you feel that type of way, shop with the brands that are exclusive. They might not be the best, but they've been like that from the beginning, not halfway through when it's starting to become a trend of melanated people wearing their products. So, oh yeah, let's now run and you know, make something for them, and it's still not right, and there's people are still complaining. So the reason I kind of want to state again, which is another subtitle for me doing this video, is because I was looking at primary colours, and I really was just in my feelings when I kept hearing, you know, they're not inclusive, and they don't do this and they don't do that. And as I said, I keep repeating, I'm yet to hear people say, create your own. Once you create your own, there is no one else to look out to other than your own people and say, well, why didn't you do that? Or how come you didn't do this? Or why didn't you, you know, there was none of that, because there is brands, products, organizations and companies out there that are run and made by melanated people, and I feel that those brands and those companies and those organizations are the least supported. They're the least supported. They're the least people to get the most recognition or the most airtime in terms of social media, because right now everything is about social media. So if it's not being pushed out there on social media, it's kind of like, well, we don't know about you. You're kind of going to just stay in the back and we're just going to, move on like we don't even know you're there. But there is plenty of makeup brands out there that are dedicated to melanated people and people of color. And I've seen a few videos where people do, black only makeup brands. So, but those are not, they're not highly videos. They're not highly recommended videos. They're videos when people get in their feelings that they decide to do something like that. So you can kind of say this is that type of video where I'm in my feelings a little bit. No more. I'm not in my feelings anymore. But you can kind of say this is a video where I'm in my feelings a little bit, or I was in my feelings why I did this video in the first place. But in terms of the basis or the foundation of why I did this video, it was to do with primary colors and creating your own. Now, I hear this statement a lot. I know it takes more of an effort to create a darker shade. Can we say that again? I know it takes a lot to make a darker shade. Okay, so let's look at primary colors. The primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. Those are the primary colors. Black and white is not a color. Those are colors that you have to make from the 3 primary colors. So any other color is created from these 3 colors: purple, pink, grey, orange, red. To make brown, you mix the 3 primary colors together. You mix all of them and you get brown. So I'm going to have to debunk that statement, because I feel like it's very ignorant of somebody to say, I know it takes a lot to make darker shades in the lab, basically, when it actually isn't. When all you need to do is mix red, yellow and blue to get brown. Now, to get various shades of brown, you add or you take away those 3 colors. You add, you might, to get more of a deeper brown or more of a red brown, you might add more red, or you take away more red and add more yellow, or so that's really how it works. So that's kind of my video in a nutshell. Hopefully this video makes sense. This is Black History Month, and it's Black History Month every day in my book. Is every day is Black History Day. So that's all I'm going to say in this video. I didn't want the video to be too long. So yeah, so that's kind of it. I think my summary for this video would be to support those that support you. Now, if they support you because they feel like they can get something out of it, then it's not worth supporting them. There's no point supporting one person because they've done something for you. Genuinely support somebody. Genuinely support a brand or a person, whoever it is that's starting up a business, that already has a business. Support those that support you, that have the best interest in you, and is not trying to exploit you for your money, is trying to give you something because they genuinely want to cater to a specific person, people or race. So that's what I would say. So as always, I'll see you in my next video, and so bye guys, peace.